eschews a very libertarian stance. I have told my friends that think I'm a neocon, far-right guy, hey guys, look, I am for the legalization of marijuana. I think that there is so much crime in America nationwide. Every state is affected by drug crime. Prisons are overcrowded largely due to drug crimes. Violence on the border, drug cartels. I believe that the legalization of marijuana will curtail a lot of that. That's just my own personal belief. I've not done lots of studies or the numbers, but my understanding is you are for the legalization of marijuana.
Well, I've advocated now the legalization of marijuana for 11 years.
Okay.
So while I was governor, my final term, I advocated the legalization of marijuana. And Paul, legalizing pot, never going to be legal to smoke pot, become impaired, get behind the wheel of a car.
Right.
Never going to be legal to smoke pot, become impaired, do harm to others. Same as alcohol.
Exactly. It's nice to hear a politician say that.
Never going to be legal for kids to smoke pot. But we're arresting 1.8 million people a year in this country on drug-related crime. Half of what we spend on law enforcement, half of what we spend in the courts, and half of what we spend in the prisons is drug-related. About $70 billion a year. Let's tax it, regulate it, control it. Let's legalize marijuana.
Absolutely.
Let's adopt harm reduction strategies regarding all the other drugs, which is first and foremost looking at the drug problem as a health issue rather than a criminal justice issue. We now have tens of millions of Americans in this country who are convicted felons that, but for our drug laws, would otherwise be tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. 100 million Americans have done illegal drugs. Under the wrong set of circumstances, 100 million Americans are behind bars. This is just not sustainable. When you talk about personal freedom, personal liberty, and the responsibility that goes along with that, doesn't that include marijuana use?
I can't agree with you more. I absolutely agree. So continuing the free market concept, legalization of marijuana, it's already being tested in cases of medical use, et cetera. Certain states are trying things, California, et cetera. Healthcare in general, we just had this big bill pushed on America through what I consider a criminal process, finding all the loopholes. Harry Reid, you've got to give him credit. He is a master tactician. He understands the rules very, very well. And they were able to bribe, beg, steal, and borrow to get health care passed. I think it's a very, very bad bill, and I've read a lot of the pages, a lot more than Congress has. What are your comments on health care, the way they did it, and what it's going to do to America?
Well, first, we couldn't afford it. And secondly, if we really want to reform health care, we need to bring about free market reforms, true free market reforms. Health care is the most regulated industry in all of America today. The government could eliminate impediments, make it easier for healthcare entrepreneurs to get involved in the healthcare industry. We need to blow the lid off of supply.
Yes.
What we've done is we're going to dump 30 million more Americans on a system with no added capacity. It's going to result in rationing and higher costs. It's just absolutely ill-conceived. The fact, and then outside of that, the notion that the federal government is requiring me to purchase something, this isn't right. I don't think it's constitutional. I think that going forward, I think that the Supreme Court could well rule that this is an unconstitutional bill.
Hopefully, the court will lean that way.
And then backing up a little bit, sure. as I mentioned at the top here, was we're bankrupt.
Yes.
We're bankrupt. We need to slash government spending by 43% to balance revenues with expenditures.
Right.
And we are moving in the opposite direction. And that when. And healthcare exemplifies that. When Medicare was adopted in the mid-'60s, it was estimated to cost $10 billion in 1980. It cost $100 billion in 1980. Today, it's $500 billion, and it hasn't even begun to see the pressures on it like it will when the baby boomers here are just now becoming eligible for those benefits.
Now let's touch on that. No, this is Paulie on FTR Radio, and I've got with me former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson. While you were governor, you shifted Medicare to managed care.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Basically, I had an insurance policy as governor of New Mexico. Mm-hmm. We insured hundreds of thousands. We insured hundreds of thousands of individuals with Medicaid. We just basically took what we were spending, compared it to, what if we gave them all an insurance policy like I had? Mm-hmm. We saved about a third. So we save money still out of control, though this is one of those areas where government spending has to be slashed. This is one of the reasons we are in bankruptcy right now as a country. And we can commit ourselves to same product, same service, but it's got to be at a much lower price. And maybe services end up... We should have, talking about safety net, I really consider myself to be a compassionate person. We could be concentrating on issues like this as opposed to, and now just for a second, national security. Mm-hmm. Look, government has an obligation to provide for a strong national defense. That is primary, one of government's primary roles. Any country that's going to raise arms against the United States, that has to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. But I would argue that our national security is not being threatened in either Iraq or Afghanistan. I would be on record saying that we shouldn't have gone into Iraq, believing that we would get mired in a civil war to which there would be no end, believing that we had the military surveillance capability to see Iraq roll out any weapons of mass destruction. I supported us going into Afghanistan in the beginning. That was about going in to get Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda, right. But they're not there anymore. So, Paul, we're 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending is borrowed. We are building roads, schools, bridges, highways, and hospitals in Iraq and Afghanistan. What are we doing? Are we not spread too thin? 50 cents out of every dollar that's spent worldwide on defense is being spent by the United States, and yet we have 5% of the population. We're spread too thin. Our military might, I believe, is being squandered. And the cost is we're bankrupt.
Yes. I don't know how we keep printing money. It's like Doritos. We keep making more, and it's just, at some point, someone's going to do a margin call on us, and it's not going to be a friendly one at that.
Well, the margin call will be the inflation that will accompany all this printed money. Absolutely. And the states, again, the looming catastrophe here with regard to all the states are all the pension funds that commitments have been made. States aren't going to be able to print the money, and we're in for a catastrophe. Benefits that were passed by legislators that should have never been passed. Absolutely. Promises made that should have never been made.
Absolutely. I'm going to take a quick break here with Governor Gary Johnson, New Mexico. We'll be right back at FTRradio.com.